If you like what we do here, be sure to like and subscribe. Even support us on Patreon. Now let's go. Hack.
Imposter.
Cloud chaser. So Clay, why now? Why after 3 years of creating content on the various platforms, why are you creating a tier list? Didn't you say they were garbage? Well, yes, I did say they were garbage, and they're still garbage. And quite frankly, my making one right now, at this moment, does not change the fact that they're garbage. This one will probably be garbage too. I still believe that they take very little talent to create, they're loaded with confirmation bias, and they don't move the needle at all in progressing the cPDH meta. In fact, they only do one thing really well, and that's drive views, baby! Yeah, for whatever reasons that I don't understand, I still don't understand, viewers love watching content creators like me espouse opinions about what's hot, what's not, for real, no cap. So really, this isn't for me. This video is for you. Now, I'm still going to ground it in data. I mean, where do you think you're at here? So how am I going to do that? You may ask. We're going to do a few top 10 lists, and then we're going to do a tier list. Do you know why? Viewers also love top 10 lists. So if we're going to do this thing, we're going to do this thing right. So, all right, let's grease this pig. Now, a caveat. The following presentation is based off of last year's data, 2024, and is meant to help you, the viewer, determine which commanders you should be playing in 2025. Top 10 list, number 1, Overrepresented. Overrepresented is just another phrase for the most number of games provided by any particular commander, regardless of player. So, in front of you, you have a list of commanders. Now this list does not consider the number of wins, just the number of times it was played in a match. So, Gretchen Titchwillow at number 1 was played 56 times in 56 separate matches. Now, that is critically important to note that 271 games were recorded last year in 2024. So of those 271 games, Gretchen Titchwillow was played in 21% of those games. So when we talk about earlier, and I know that we've mentioned this a number of times on the quarterly reports and anecdotally within some of the other videos that we've put out on the channel, we do have somewhat of an overrepresentation problem, and I wanted to exhibit that specifically right out of the gate, because we talk a lot about Gretchen being the best deck. Well, if she shows up a lot, then she's going to have a higher degree or high chance of winning, and if she's, showing up a lot, then that even increases her chances of winning more. So I'm not trying to take away from the fact that Gretchen is good. Gretchen is good. However, there might be a skosh of a representation problem, because if people are playing Gretchen Titchwillow in 20%, 21% of all matches, then they're not playing other commanders which could also benefit from that representation. Not that we're all about like specific equal representation in the data. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is that if she has the lion's share of representation within the meta, then she's likely to have a higher win rate as a result of that representation. You get it. I'm beating the horse. So as we go down the list here, you'll see some obvious, all-stars. Breaches Malcolm, Abdel Iron Throne. It's important to note that I don't think Gretchen won a tournament in 2024. If she did, it was early in 2024, and my old man memory is failing me. Breaches Malcolm, I don't believe took down, has been in a top 4. Gretchen has definitely been a top 4. Abdel Iron Throne has won a tournament. Vol Shadow Thieves, been in a top 4. Sphinx Summoner has won a tournament. Sir Conrad has been in a top 4, but otherwise has not done anything. I'm laughing because that's a commander that I played in 2024. Zada, TPI won a tournament. Abdel Swordcourse Sailor won a tournament in 2022. Wilson Far Traveler has been a top 4 contender as well. Needless to say, all of these commanders are good. In fact, the only one that I can point out that might have some issues that aren't being necessarily displayed here due to its representation is Sir Conrad. Yes, there is a top 4 performance, but wholly the deck really didn't, the commander didn't perform all that well in 2024. But it's a very popular commander, and this is what is shown here. So there's that. Now to the next list. Top 10 list, number 2. Okay, guys. If the first one was about representation and how many times it had been played in a match, they're all popular commanders. This one, this top 10 list, is about achievement. So number of wins. Now, once again, I said on the last page that, or on the last list rather, that Gretchen was overly represented in the meta. And then also, if you notice, by a byproduct of that is she has the most number of wins. Now, would she have the same number of wins if she had fewer representations in the meta? That's the question I want you to ask. Not trying to take away. Gretchen is a great deck. But also we see Breaches Malcolm. We see Abdel Iron Throne. If you notice, those top 3 are the same top 3 on the last top 10 list. Now we start to deviate a little bit with Laylor Weaver, who had back-to-back tournament wins last year. Sphinx Summoner, also a familiar face. Wilson Far Traveler, familiar face. Third Path Iconoclast, Val Shadow Thieves, Abdel Sword Coast Sailor, and then the last one is Hollow Marauder. So this particular top 10 would be the overachievers who essentially won the most matches out of those 271 matches. See? Top 10 lists are fun. Let's get to this next one. Top 10 list number 3. So here we're looking at overperformance. Now, is there such thing as overperformance when it comes to winners? I think not. So the first one was looking at overly represented, and then we were overachieving, and now we're overperforming. So these commanders have basically the highest recorded win rates for their games from last year, from 2024. Malcolm Roger, top of the list, alongside Scholar of the Ages. Now, what you don't know in the data, and this is kind of like maybe the second, maybe the third, this is the multitude of lessons learned from presenting data in a very specific way, is that Malcolm Roger only had 4 games. Scholar of the Ages only had 4 games. So they won 3 of those 4 games, and now they have 75% win rates. So the 100% win rates don't really exist because those commanders that would have had so Abdel Sword Coast Sailor in 2022 would have had a tournament win with 100% win rate. It's all well and good until that commander's just not, or until that commander's played again. And once that commander is played again, then that win rate starts to, you get it. You get math. You get it. So going down the list, Patchwork Automaton, also another one shot, one and done. Diviner Spirit, one and done. Flesh Form. You see what's happening here. Now, the one item on this list that I would love to call attention to that is not one of those one and done type commanders is Hollow Marauder. Hollow Marauder is the only commander on this list that was featured in multiple tournaments and still maintained a 50% win rate. So this is the top 10 list for overperformers. All of them except for one are one shot and done, played that one time in that particular tournament that they were in, except for Hollow Marauder. we're building up to a tier list. Top 10 lists are fun, right? Top 10 lists are fun. Let's keep it moving. Top 10 list number 4. All right. So a little tongue in cheek here. What I wanted to demonstrate with this top 10 list is that this is a list of commanders who, on their average winning turn, who had the fewest number of turns for their average winning turn. So they're all premature in the fact that they just want to get in and get out. So Lily Splash Mentor at the very top with 5 turns. So this is actually pretty interesting to look at, not to be meta, but a meta way of looking at the average number of turns. We tend to think of fast combo as like being super fast. And if that's the case, if turn 5 is fast, whatever it is that you particularly believe on that subject, if turn 5 is fast, then turn 5 is fast, but also makes it to where turn 8 is slow. And we should see, kind of as we scale down through this list, what, fast decks and slow decks for their archetypes look like. So kind of pacing through this, Lily Splash, combo deck, Laylor Weavers, combo deck. I gotta be honest with you, I don't know what a smaller Rumblers does. Maybe that's a topic of discussion. I think it would be a combo deck. Sure. Dargo Kedis, aggro deck. Lagomos, Hand of Hatred, mid-range deck. Rasad Feywild, mid-range deck. Gritchen Titchwillow, mid-range deck. That one's for you, Dallas. Puzzle. So, slow combo deck. Breaches Malcolm, a slower combo deck that is actually masquerading as a control list. So I guess Gretchen would be considered somewhat of a mid-range control combo. It gets real weird. Abdel, a known slow combo deck. And then this is what I find interesting. Our premier, or one of our premier aggro decks, has an average winning turn of 8. Gut Inspiring Leader in the data has a average winning turn of turn 8, which is one of our 2 fastest aggro decks in the format. I thought that was really interesting, and it's really nice when you start to one side effect of doing these top 10 lists is you get to kind of peer into the data and see what's actually happening with some of these things. Anyhow, let's move on to the next list. Top 10 list number 5. All right. So if we had Premature Performers on the first one, we've got Flagrant Filibusterers on the, it's these puns or this alliteration, whatever. So if the previous top 10 list was focused on who is getting the business done the quickest, then this top 10 list is definitely showing which ones take the longest. So what's interesting to note is this one at the very top, Killian Ink Duelist, really only had one particular game that I remember it playing in. And for whatever reason, I think the player had to take off, but it holds the crown at 28 turns. Yes, you can get 28 turns in 90 minutes if everybody's just, drawing past in those final turns, trying to look for, some sort of win. That said, the commanders that start to make sense, Abdel Street, right? Everybody knows that it's one of the more premier hard control decks of the format. Has an average number of turns of 13. Armix Rebic at 13 as well. Crackling Drake, another control list at 13. Sivrus Cloakwood, a slower mid-range deck, 13. Raf is a often touted, it's got a combo finish, but often touted as a control list at 12 turns. Crypt Rats, I think Crypt Rats is often touted as a control list as well. I mean, on its face, it just makes sense that that's what it is, but you never know. Mystic Enforcer, also a control list. However, it's primarily toting the flag of Voltron in the data, so a Voltronic control list, Wilson Far Traveler, mid-range lists. And once again, that last slot in the previous list, it was one of our premier aggro decks in the format, holding down a turn count that, wouldn't be necessarily on its face attributed to a fast aggro deck. Well, Arabella is the new girl in town who everybody's talking about as this fast, can get out of control, can get out of hand quickly kind of decks. And if you notice, 11, turn 11 is the average number of turns for this particular new commander. That's very interesting to me. I don't know what it means, but it's very interesting to me. So, our top 10 list fun, kids? Yeah, this is great. Okay, on to the next one. Top 10 list number 6. How many of these are there? I don't know. We're just going to keep going. So, it's the last two. So, this is the second to last list. The last two are super interesting, and I was trying to convey something very specific in the data via a top 10 list. So for this top 10, we're going to look at the most improved commanders from the beginning of the year compared to the end of the year. So that's the trick. First half, second half. So we're going to measure that and display that measurement here. Now, what I find wonderfully fascinating is that Wilson, for whatever reason, did not perform as well in the beginning of the year and shot up by, 25% in the later half of the year. I find that absolutely fascinating. Same thing with Gut. While not 25%, Gut definitely got better at the end of the year. Now, Hollow Marauder started out as a combo list in the beginning of the year with that put up at least one win, but, not really anything beyond that, but then really came through at the end of the year, winning 2 tournaments. And that one experienced a 21% increase. Once again, the Somala Rumblers, I really have to look that. This is going to be a meme. This is going to be a meme, isn't it? I got to really look up that Somala Rumblers to see what that commander is actually doing. Anyway, you get it. As we parse on down, all the way down to the bottom, Sivrus Cloakwood experienced a 3% increase in performance by the end of the year. Now, what's interesting is for you players who play in tournaments and did so in the course of 2024, I want you to think to yourselves, now I can't do it right now because I'm, recording a video, but I want you to think to yourselves, what conditions were occurring in the beginning of the year that weren't occurring at the end of the year, or vice versa? What was absent in the beginning of the year that wasn't so absent, that was present in the end of the year? What are the contributing factors that led to a 25% increase in performance of Wilson from the beginning to the end of the year? These are the questions, right? So, we've done the most improved. I promise you the next one is the last one. Let's move to the least improved. Top 10 list, number 7. Yes, this is the last one, folks. This is the last one. Okay, so we had most improved on the previous top 10 list. This is the least improved. It's the same conditions. It's the first half of the year, 2024, compared to the second half of the year, 2024. And these are the commanders listed that have a worse record of improvement. Crip Rats notably at 16% performed 16% worse. Yeah. 16% worse than it did at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year. Dalek Squadron, Malcolm Roger, Satyr Enchanter, Sir Conrad the Grim. The top 4 that I mentioned previously for Sir Conrad the Grim happened in the beginning of the year, so it got worse. As we go through and look at these lists, this particular list, this one in the previous top 10 list, the most and least improved, I really want you to consider in your social memory, or by all means, go to cPDH.com and actually, move the widgets on the data to actually look at the data from these two periods and try to discover what the rationale is for the better improvement from the previous top 10 list or this worse improvement in this particular top 10 list. Okay. There it is. I know I didn't read a lot of these off on every single list. I promise you'll be able to pause it and, all that stuff. We got to get to the meat of the thing anyway. Okay. Here we go. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, and NBs of all ages, let's get ready to rumble. It's time for the ultimate tier list. Let's get it going. Here we go. Wait. Stop. Wait. Hold. Time out. Yo, I've got a reputation to protect. What do you think was going to happen here? Actually, let's do this a different way. Take it away. Okay, my friends, I have something that's even better than a tier list. It's better than a tier list because it's based in fact. It's based in data. Granted, there can be some subjective things relative to that data, but we try to be extremely transparent and demonstrate all of our methods and how we show these things. So that said, what I'd like to show you is the updated cPDH.guide's cPDH power rankings right here. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to navigate over to this statistics drop down, and you're going to find the cPDH power rankings. We're already on that page. And what you're going to do now, preferably, you can view this on mobile. And I know 60% of you out there are using mobile right now to view cPDH.guide. I see it in the metrics. You can still view this on mobile, but preferably you'd want a larger format screen, which is why I'm demonstrating this for you on laptop, desktop, etc. So if you're on a laptop or desktop, it would behoove you to click this full screen button, which will give you everything that you want to see in full view. I was going to say full frontal. Yes, full frontal. cPDH.guide is here to satisfy your needs. So this right here is the new, improved, updated cPDH power rankings for our format, our meta. So what is new, previously the power rankings just provided you with a raw score. And that raw score was essentially graded, or it was set on a gradient. It was actually spread across a gradient of 0 to 100. So it intentionally spread out all of those values between those two numbers. Here, we're doing something a little different. We're calculating the raw win rate, and then we are calculating a strength of schedule, and then we're making a composite adjustment based on those first two items. So what you're going to see before you is that we had talked about, Gretchen and Malcolm Breaches and a few of these other decks in the top 10s previously. Now you can see that where that overrepresentation is now accounted for in looking at strength of schedule. If Gretchen was played, as I recall, it was like 54 or 58 games. If all of those opponents were easy, then that would tank Gretchen's strength of schedule score and would be reflected in the composite adjustment. Now, as you can see with Gretchen, she has a 33.3% win rate. Now, granted, also, mind you that the top 10 data list was from 2024 only. On this particular page of the website, it is all time. I'll get to that in a minute, why that's important in a minute. But what I want to show you, demonstrate to you, is that Gretchen has an all-time win rate of 33.3% with a 0.29 strength of schedule, and her composite adjustment is just slightly lower than her win rate. So what that's telling us is Gretchen is uniformly competing against high level, high performance decks and low performance decks uniformly. So that means that's why her score is relatively, her composite adjustment score is relatively close to her actual win rate. Now, as you can see, Malcolm Breaches is a little bit different in that it's somewhat overperforming, and the reason why it's overperforming is that its strength of schedule was not rated appropriately. I realize it says the same thing, but you can come at a strength of schedule, differently based on what the opponents were that it was competing against. So its composite adjustment is down to that 0.3 number, and then so on and so on and so on. What's critical about this type of rating versus the way we were doing it previously is now you can actually compare and look to see like what anomalies exist out there. As I'm looking across, you notice that Viscopa Guildmage, Kedis Malcolm, Third Path Iconoclast, these are decks that have higher strength of schedule ratings than Gretchen. So they were playing tougher opponents than Gretchen was. So the reason why we wanted to do this is because it is more transparent and it puts the agency back in your hands. Now, we've adjusted the way that these particular graphs are outlined. You'll see the number of top 4 finishes at the bottom, still with the top 10 performing commanders. So that performance metric is a different metric than overall win rate. What it's looking at is a standard deviation type calculation in performance compared to just this raw win rate performance. So if a commander is on a hot streak, so Wilson, Far Traveler, Breaches Malcolm, Kedis Malcolm, they all appear to be on somewhat of a hot streak relative to the other commanders, which is why it's only reporting that basically top 10, that uber elite that are having that high performance at the moment. Then also, for transparency's sake, trying to hint at some of that representation or the issues with representation, overrepresentation in the format. The number of top 4 finishes by any particular commander. You can see it's at the top with 8 with Gretchen, and then scales on down. So essentially, what I'm trying to do, what anybody involved with cPDH.guide, the mods on the Discord server, and myself producing the content with Dallas, Puzzlebox, all we're trying to do is put this information into your hands, give you the power to make these decisions. Now, can we sit there and make, some anecdotal, opinionated type of espousals along the way? Yes, absolutely we can. But it's never our intention to tell you exactly what you should be playing. Now, that said, if you're watching this in the beginning of 2025, our data, if you watch the latest end of year report for the year 2024, our data shows that for every appearance, or increase in appearance or popularity of control, there's a requisite and equal amount of performance. Now, there's going to be a breakpoint in there somewhere. So if there is something that you should be doing, you should be playing more control in 2025, but that's as far as I'm going to go. What style control deck or list that you play is completely up to you. There's one that's number 2 at the very top of the list here, Malcolm Breaches. So, if you want to play, control list as recommended by your guy here, Clay, Malcolm Breaches is a perfectly good opportunity or perfectly good list that you can play and have some expectation of results with. Same thing with Hollow Marauder. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. So anyhow, my apologies for giving you all this hype about tier lists and all of that. I'm not saying that I'll never produce a tier list. I actually have an idea for an actual tier list, tier list content later in the year. But don't hold me to it for any particular time frame. I'm going to do it in a very specific way. So there's a likelihood that I'll do this, an actual tier list, sometime this year. But it won't be anything, equivalent to what anybody else is doing. I think they're silly. I know they get views, but you guys need better. You should expect better. You should demand better. Okay. That's enough for today. Until the next time, my friends, much love, and here's to a good 2025.